proceedings of Thursday, the 20th of October 2016, page 635, 636, 637, 638, 639, 640, 641, 642, 643, 644, 645, 646, 647, 648, 649, 650, 651, 652, 653, 654, 655, 656, 657, 658, 659, 660, 661, 662, 663, 664, 665, 666, 667, Senator Nazif.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Police. My name is Senator Suleiman Nazif. Move for the approval of votes and resolution of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Thursday, 20th October 2016.
Thank you, Senator Njuba.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Angela Okarapa South. Support and vote and resolution of Thursday, 20th October 2016.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, those in support of the proceedings of Thursday, the 20th of October 2016, be now, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Announcements. Letter from Mr. President. Request for environment of funds appropriated for special intervention recurrent and special intervention capital for the funding of critical recurrent and capital items. I write request for the environment of funds appropriated for special intervention recurrent, special intervention capital to fund some critical recurrent and capital items. This request has arisen due to a number of reasons, including shortfalls in provision for personnel costs, inadequate provision ab initio for some items like the amnesty program, continuing requirements to sustain the war against insurgency, and depreciation of the naira. However, considering the fact that budgeted revenues are running behind targets largely due to the renewed violence in the Niger Delta, and there are no supplementary revenue sources, the most viable option for now is the environment of appropriated funds from heads or sub-heads that may not be fully utilized before the end of this fiscal year. In the course of implementing the 2016 Appropriation Act, several MDAs have presented issues pertaining to salary shortfalls, the settlement of part of which has led to the depletion of the Public Service Wage Adjustment (PSWA). These votes, which are the provision of 33,597,400,000, now has a balance of 2,278,296,000. The Committee on Salary Shortfalls, set up by the Honorable Minister of Finance, has come up with a figure of 275,083,020 naira as the amount required to settle salary shortfalls of non-IP's MDAs. Similarly, most of the IP's MDAs have already been notified by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation that they will soon be locked out of IP's platform as their personnel cost budgets would not cover salary for the rest of the year. The IP's department in OAGF has forwarded a figure of 20 billion 58 million 204,856 naira as the sum required to cover the shortfalls salaries of IP's MDAs. The security related lines in the service-wide vote, specifically operations internal for the armed forces 13 billion and Operation Lafia Dolen 8 billion, have all been totally released, while the Nigerian Air Force needs about 12 billion 708 million 367,470 naira to cover the foreign exchange differentials in the procurement of the critical capabilities. The contingency vote of 12 billion has advance of 1 billion 827,570,443 naira. It is considered necessary to augment vote in the light of frequently emerging contingencies. Only 20 billion already fully released were provided in the 2016 budget for the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. Consequently, the allowances to ex-militants have only been paid up to May 2016. This is creating a lot of restiveness and compounding security challenges in Niger Delta. The provision of NYSC in the 2016 budget is inadequate to cater for the number of corpers to be mobilized this year. In fact, additional 8.5 billion is required to cover the backlog of 129,469 corps members who are currently due for call-up but would otherwise be left out till next year due to funding constraints. Similarly, the provision for meal subsidy for unity colleges is inadequate for the number of students in the school. Also, there was no provision for feeding of cadets at the police academy within Kano. These situations are hampering the operation of the affected agencies. The provision for statutory transfer to the Public Complaints Commission (PCC) was reduced to 2 billion in 2016 from 4 billion in 2015. Consequently, the agency is experiencing difficulty in paying salaries of its personnel as and when due. Due to the devaluation of the naira, the budgetary provisions for the foreign missions are no longer sufficient to cover all their costs. The provision for presidential initiatives for Northeast 12 billion has a balance of less than 1.5 billion, and there continues to be emerging challenges with the internal displaced persons in the zone. I therefore request environments from the special intervention, recurrent and special intervention capital to fund the free critical expenditure items. 1. Recurrent. Current 1. Search-wide vote, public service wage adjustment, detailed in Annexure 1, 71 billion 800 million 215,270 naira. Service-wide vote contingency, 1 billion 200 million. Service-wide vote margin for increase in cost, 2 billion. Minister of Interior, Cadet Feeding, Police Academy, Wudi Kano, 902 million 400,000. Service-wide vote amnesty program, 35 billion. Service-wide vote internal operations of armed forces, 5 billion 205 million 930,270 naira. Service-wide vote operation Lafia Do, 13 billion 933 million 93,000. Minister of Youth and Sports Development NYSC, 19 billion 792 million 18,400 naira. Minister of Foreign Affairs Foreign Missions, 14 billion 667 million 230,014 naira. Federal Minister of Education, augmentation of meal subsidy, direct teaching and lab cost, 900 billion. Subtitle, 165 billion 430 million 886,954 naira. Statutory transfers. Statutory transfer Public Claim Commission, salary shortfall, 1 billion 200 million. Subtotal, 1 billion 200 million. Capital. Minister of Defense, Nigerian Air Force, 12 billion 708 million 367,476 naira. Capital supplementation, presidential initiative for Northeast, 1 billion 500 subtotal 14 billion 208,367,476 naira. Grand total 180 billion 839,254,430 naira. From the foregoing, the total recurrent expenditure requirement is 166 billion 630,886,954 naira, while the capital expenditure requirement is 14 billion 208,367,476 naira. Most MDAs have substantially advanced work on their 2016 curriculum plans and are awaiting release of funds. The personnel costs and overhead provisions leaves no margin for amounts to be provided from them. The only viable provision from which the required amounts can be provided are those for special intervention program, which are not likely to be fully utilized this year, as it took some time to work out proper operational modalities for the operation. We are committed to the implementation of the special intervention program and intend to provide fully for the 2017 budget. Please find as tabulated below the proposals for the amount to be provided. 1. Special intervention recurrent 300 billion, balance 275 billion, environment 160 billion 630 million 886,954 naira. 2. Capital in federal government special intervention program capital supplementation 200 billion, balance 145 billion, environment 14 billion 208 million 367,476 naira. Total appropriated 500 billion, balance 420 billion, environment 180 billion 839,254,430 naira. You may also wish to be informed that the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing has also requested for the payment of the sum of 300 million appropriated under the 2016 appropriation of the Transmission Company of Nigeria (TCN) for the construction of 132 kVA substation at Gwara, Jigawa State, with project code number TCN 01B20238829, with the construction of the 2x60 MVA 132/33 in Gagarawa, Jigawa State. However, it was observed that while the line to be provided from exists in the budget book published by National Assembly, the lines to be provided to do not exist. It is therefore recommended that a sum of 300 million meant for the construction of 132 kVA substation at Gwara, Jigawa State, be provided to budget line TCN number 1B021775 for the construction of the following transmission towers, replacement of the glass insulators, etc., which has an appropriation of 4 billion 880 million. I implore you to urgently consider the above proposals in order to support our efforts to improve the well-being of our citizens. I assure you that these proposals have been diligently evaluated and are truly exigent. Please accept, distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my best regards. Signed, Muhammad Buhari, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Further announcements. I would like to acknowledge the presence of members of Arewa Youths and Students Forum, National Executive Council, Murtala Mohammed Square, Kaduna State. Also, staff and students of Lightway Academy, Wuse 2, Abuja. We have as well staff and students of Loveland International School, Wuse 2, Abuja. They are here at the gallery to observe our processes and proceedings today. And welcome. Please settle down. Senate Leader.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Senator Umoji.
Excellency, I rise on number 53. I have a petition here from one of my classmates who was whose human rights was grossly violated and illegally deported from Switzerland.
to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges to report back in 2 weeks. Any other petition? Let us be number.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues. Open number. Mr. President, I have a petition for one of my customers against Nigeria police who has suspended me without a reason, and they opened for me for it to be come back and put and no legal.
Thank you. It's also referred to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges to report back in 2 weeks. Senator Mao will have one.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Senator Mao Babula representing Akwama. Mr. President, I have two petitions from two of my constituents. One against the Nigerian police by Corporal Obasilomo alleging wrongful and unlawful dismissal from the force and is seeking serious intervention to restore him back to his post. The second one, Mr. President, is from Mazi Emmanuel Eminem against the Nigerian Immigration Service, requesting that we should intervene to ensure that his entitlement after divorce can be retained. Mr. President, I take your indulgence to take this to you.
Yes, can lay them, please. The two petitions are respectively referred to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges to report back in 2 weeks. Any other petition? Yes, Lomo.
President, distinguished colleagues,
The petition from Lagos State, and they complain about the 1%. Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we rise to support the motion that we stand down the motion sponsored by Senator Stella Odo. This is another auspicious time. Let us second.
Dear colleagues, those support the motion that will stand down the first motion in the other paper today till a later time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Snelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second order of the day is still a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Jibril Barao on the National Youth Service Corps NYC mobilization. Mr. President, you will recall that on Wednesday, 19th October 2016, the Senate by Order 42.2 of our standing order approved that this motion be moved on another legislative day, which is today. Accordingly, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Jibril Barao to move the motion for the Senate. To move the motion.
Senator Jube, are you still minded to move the motion in view of this letter from the President? Because the issues you've raised here have been addressed by the President is later this morning.
Mr. President, I'm a bit confused. I'm not too sure whether it covers everything matter you are trying to address by this motion. But if it's covered, we can. Okay, in view of the letter we got from the President today, I wish to withdraw the motion. I only hope that full mobilization, sorry, of all graduates who are qualified to perform or to mobilize for the batch B of the NYC program as arranged in batch B. I hope everybody is organized.
Thank you so much. I think that's what the President seeks to achieve by doing the environment to enable the NYC to mobilize all those that are due for mobilization and ensure there is a sufficient fund for them to undertake the scheme. So thank you for withdrawing the motion at this point. So those in support that this motion now be withdrawn, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is accordingly withdrawn. Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished Senator Jibril. The third order of the day is a motion standing in the name of former comrade Senator Shehu Sani on the need to include Pan-Africanism in Nigerian secondary schools curriculum. Mr. President, we may wish to invite distinguished former Senator Shehu Sani move the motion. Former comrade, now Senator.
Well, the last time I checked, Shehu Sani still is comrade. Comrade Shehu Sani. Or fellow comrade Shehu Sani.
Mr. President, I stand. Comrade Senator Shehu Sani. Move this motion, which is very unusual in this chamber in the last 17 years. And I begin my
Joaquin.
Your Excellency, sir, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Madam Ajimachi Elena. I represent Bauchi South. I rise to lend my voice to support the motion shortly proposed by Senator Shosai. You may recall that some 2 weeks here, I brought the issue of value orientation and the need for us to entrench the study of history in our schools, especially from primary to secondary schools and to the university level, so that we can know our past. Part of Shosani's motion is just in line with that motion that history will be entrenched, so that we can know where we come from. Today, how many of us know about Kajiti Rahim? He's a great Pan-Africanist. He's a Nigerian, even from the state. He has given his mark worldwide. He passed on some times ago. He and the Minister of Solid Minerals were abroad in the trenches trying to fight for changes for democracy and other things. I'm talking locally here. Who knows today about Sadi? So many people are forgetting about the late Hannah Sadi. Even Dr. Ndedi Alikwe, some of the pioneers of Africans, most of us only know him by name, we don't have his antecedents and others. So I support this motion so that it can continue to be part of the study of history of the Nigerian state. Thank you, sir.
Senator Jibril Barao, can you confirm whether they have restored the teaching of history in the school curriculum?
Well, my name is Sensitive Rocky. That document now to find out what's happening. It's stopped.
No, because if they've restored that, I'm sure I should include Pan-Africanism. So, just based on this motion, I just wanted to be sure. But let's take further contributions. Tijani.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Tijani Ayakora. I represent Oromo. Mr. President, I just want to shed light on this subject and allow distinguished colleagues to take decisions on them. On the issue of withdrawal of history in the curriculum, I think there was a pronouncement by Clement that history will now come back into the curriculum. And if that is the case, and I'm sure since policy statement has been made, that means history will return into school curriculum definitely sooner or later. But added to that, Mr. President, I think the teaching of English literature in school, literature in English, is indeed one aspect where Pan-Africanism is taught. Because both in teaching of prose, poetry, and grammar, these issues of Pan-Africanism are deliberately integrated into teaching of this subject. Now, if history is introduced again, reintroduced again, that means substantial part of this subject in history will also be care of Pan-Africanism. And finally, Mr. President, I think we have come to an era where we must agree and encourage a number of art subjects in our schools. This is a time of technology, this is a time of science, this is an era of science. A number of our graduates are roaming the streets simply because they do not have, they have not acquired the knowledge that provides them the necessary skill to be able to live on themselves without seeking government employment. And these are some of the reasons, because a number of subjects we have in schools are art-based subjects. So I think it is time we discourage adding more weight into our school curriculums on art subjects. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Ibrahim Kofi. You raise your hand. Oh, okay. Kamau.
Mr. President, distinguished senators,
Prayer 1. Urge the Federal Ministry of Education to include Pan-Africanism in Nigerian Sunday school curriculum. Those in support of this prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. Please. Distinguished colleagues, I'm putting the question. Amendment, yes, Senator.
No, Mr. President, in line with my argument, what I'm saying is that we urge the Federal Ministry of Education to include this study of history and civics in Nigerian secondary school curriculum. I think that would, because when you talk about history, Pan-Africanism.
All right. Those in support of prayer 1 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the federal government to erect a mausoleum in the Federal Capital Territory in honor and memory of Pan-Africanists and all who struggled for African unity and liberation. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. I'll put the question again. Urge the federal government to erect a mausoleum in the Federal Capital Territory in honor and memory of Pan-Africanists and all who struggle for African unity and liberation. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Prayer 3. Observe a minute silence in honor of late Pan-Africanists. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Senior leader. Additional prayer. Yes, Senator Adokwe.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in support of this, important motion, so that we do not lose sight of the importance of the message that was being conveyed, I would want to suggest an addition like this. Urge the African Union to set a day to annually commemorate life and times of Pan-Africanists.
Is anybody seconding that? Senator Mao.
I second the additional prayer as moved by Senator Adokwe that we should prepare ask African Union to dedicate a day that we use to celebrate Pan-Africanism. Yes.
Okay. Those in support of the additional prayer that we urge the African Union to set out a date to celebrate the Pan-Africanists. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. Those against say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senior leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The third order of the day, or the fourth order of the day, is motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Moru I. Kofi on the need to revisit the regulatory conflict between Joint Admission and Matriculation Board (JAM) and universities in offering admission in Nigeria. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Moru I. Kofi to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Umar Kofi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name remains Umar Ibrahim Kuripi, Professional Central. Mr. President, I wish to commence by expressing my sincere appreciation for the opportunity given to me to move my motion on this very important subject matter. Mr. President, sir, my distinguished colleagues, permit me to move my motion as follows.
discussed this matter sometime in the past. Senator Matthew.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Matthew Rovide, Edo South Imperial District. Mr. President, I want to say that this issue that concerns equality training giving at tertiary level is concerned, particularly as a body that has had the responsibility of giving admission students or candidates to university admission. These are the regulatory body for the standards that are kept in by the International University Commission. And then of course the introduction of the post-exam assessment or examination by the various.
Sorry, point of order, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I raise on to point order 28, which deals with the function of the majority leader. One is to manage the legislative schedule of the Senate. Mr. President, I'm not aware that Southeast senators are holding possibly in December, and we are debating about it. Focus meetings are supposed to be held in a room, not in the chamber.
State leader, your point is noted. But you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, in supporting the motion, I needed to outline the three areas, Senator Kraft, has mentioned in this motion of his. We know that there has been a lot of confusion as per
Senator Barime.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Engineer Barike, and I represent Abia South. I'm a little confused by this motion. The reason is this. I'm a member of the Tertiary Education Committee, and I know that we have discussed this matter with NUC and JAM. And I know that presently there is no post-JAM exam going on in any university because that was abolished by the minister acting conservator. And I know that presently the problem between JAM and the universities is very simple. JAM is supposed to conduct an examination across board. Universities are supposed to, on their own, through their university councils, admit students when they come with their JAM results. And so this conflict is in this manner. There is an assumption that once you pass JAM with a particular cutoff, that means that you automatically get a place with the university. But that is not true. What is actually true today from the last meeting that was done between the universities and NUC is that the university councils, by law, are supposed to regulate their own intake. And so that is where the little lacuna now exists, and they are addressing it at the moment. But when we now say that we should pass a resolution to scrap post-JAM, it's already scrapped. There's no post-JAM anymore. So that's why I say I'm a little bit confused. If it is to direct JAM to blow strategy to ensure efficiency in their examination, that's a different matter entirely. I think JAM is already doing everything like the last one they tried, which didn't work very well, which is to use the internet, and they cause so much confusion among students because they send them out and they didn't have enough places for them to do their exam. So what I would want to suggest here, with due respect, is that maybe this is a matter that we should ask the tertiary committee to discuss with the NUC, the universities, and JAM. Because I don't think that the essence of this particular motion, which has to do with post-JAM, is not relevant since there's no more post-JAM. What the present policy today is that NUC has agreed with all the universities that each university will develop their own criteria to now admit students. I agree that some of the universities looks like they are extorting students, but they were extorting them through the they're no longer doing post-JAM. What exactly are we now discussing here? So I think that we meant to reframe the resolution to say, urge the committee on tertiary and any other relevant committee to take a very quick look at this impasse that is between the JAM candidates and the university in terms of
Okay, we'll deal with that when we get to the prayers. Philip Ginka.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Philip Araginka, Senator National of State. I look at this post-JAM examination as one of another way of aiding and abetting malpractices and denying some of the students the the point that they will not extort the student any longer. A way of every university will now want to set another standard. If we can have one standard that will coordinate all the students that are applying, we know that yes, we have hardship in this country today, but when you keep on extorting the student on basis that you want them to write post-jam, most of the time, this gives room for admitting students through the back door. And that one will indeed bring about the low standard of education. Because jam, as I understand it, when they are writing jams, nobody knows where which student is from where. And in that aspect, everybody that is writing the jam has a free mind that at the end of the jam is marked. When he scored the appropriate points, definitely he's going to be admitted. But when it takes back to the university, setting back again, that is when there's you're face to face with the lecturers, face to face with the institution, whereby they create some level of malpractices and denying examination should be scrapped. That is my own voice in this regard. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Direct JAMB to develop a strategy to ensure efficiency in the conduct of JAMB examinations. Those in support of the prayer say aye. Those against say nay. Even the person, the mover of the motion, did he say anything? Those in support of prayer 1, that will direct JAMB to develop strategy to ensure efficiency in the conduct of JAMB examinations, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the Senate to pass a resolution to direct Nigerian University Commission to scrap the post-jam exercise in its entirety. And this have been taken by events, so take it to be withdrawn. Okay. Prayer 3. Urge the Senate to make such further directives as it seems expedient in circumstance. This seems to be ambiguous. Okay, those in support of prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Say leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The next order of the day. Now, we're going back to the first order because distinguished Senator Stella here, ready to take my motion. Is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Stella Odua on the need for the establishment of inland ports at Onitsha, Enugu, and other inland port states. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Stella Odua to move the motion.
Senator Odua.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, President, my dear colleagues. President, my bill this morning, my motion this morning is about establishment of inland ports in Onitsha. Mr. President, it's not only Onitsha.
has ports, and every time people talk about port, Lagos don't want other people to have ports. Ekiti State, I don't know whether Ekiti wants inland port too. If Ekiti wants inland port, then Ekiti should listen to. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to just make a slight correction to this very laudable motion. Where states are landlocked, what they actually need is inland ports. That is what they call dry ports, ports that come in. You can move things by rail, and then they can move those goods out when they come into the main port. So in making this correction, I would like to really say that we use this, and in addition to these areas that are served by the River Niger or River Benue, as the case may be, that will now help us to be able to make sure that in each of the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, not just in the southeast, but beyond the southeast, that the federal government looks very critically at the area of making sure that maritime transportation, dry port system, the rail system, everything is integrated in a network that helps and help for this country to get the necessary commercial ventures that we want to do. And so when we get to the prayers, I would want to suggest an amendment to the prayers to include the establishment of dry port in the country. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. President and respected colleagues, James Manager Delta South. I have not against this particular motion, no. But particularly with the amendment given by Senator Abaribe, my very good brother and friend. But then, because we don't have executing powers, anything worth doing is worth doing well. The motion on the surface reads establishment of inland ports. Inland ports, that is what the motion, the heading is appearing. And for us to get it done, because this motion is very, very important, particularly with the amendment given by Senator Abaribe. But because of the importance of the motion, it don't come by way of amendment. It is better, in my humble view, Mr. President, because comparison is also done, because we are talking about inland ports, and the areas mentioned, some of them are very far from big rivers. Yes. From the little knowledge I have about Enugu, I'm not from there, but I visited a number of times, courtesy of the Deputy Senate President. And then we are talking about Abari too. And of course, these dry ports are important for so many of these big cities that are landlocked in the country. And so for us to have a motion that will pass, that will be respected on the other side, so that it will give effect to it. It is important, my humble view, Mr. President. I know how important this motion to you and to all of us. I am from a riverine place. Mind you, I enjoy big rivers everywhere. But for everybody to have a sense of belonging in this country called Nigeria, these dry ports are important. But this motion, the way it is, I humbly urge that let it be tactically withdrawn and then be represented, taking advantage of the amendment that has been sought by Senator Baribe, so that this motion will now be respected on the other side. Mine is for it to be respected on the other side, it has to be withdrawn. That is my humble view. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
Senator Mwag again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ovie Omo Agege, I represent the good people of Delta Central. Mr. President, I want to begin by commending the mover of this motion, my sister, my friend, Senator Stella Odwa. Mr. President, this motion has been on the other paper for close to 1 year. And people like us will be waiting for this opportunity, for this motion to be moved. We've been waiting because we believe it is very, very, very important. And the reason why we so canvass has been very well articulated in the motion itself by the mover. Principally because we know the difficulties associated with clearing of goods and the time lost is seen to the same. Mr. President, I support this because, like Senator Manager just said, I also happen to come from the riverine area as well, in Delta. And Mr. President, sometime about 2008, when the decision was taken to dredge the Niger River, the River Niger, some concessions were made along the way, including but not limited to the establishment of river ports along the River Niger. And one of the concessions made at the time was the establishment of Okwagbe Inland River Port. Mr. President, approval actually at that time was actually given for that port to commence. But since 2008 to date, nothing has been done about it. So, Mr. President, I rise today to support this motion that while we are approving that these ports, be it dry port, be it inland ports in Onitsha, Enugu and Aba, while we do that, consideration should also be given for the construction of the Okwagbe seaport that has already been approved. So when it comes, Mr. President, to the time of the prayers, we're going to be seeking an amendment, because even though the prayer did say and other landlocked states, Delta State, where I come from, is not landlocked for sure. But I want that to be amended when time comes to include the Okwagbe seaport. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Sir Gabriel.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this very important motion because I believe if we can be able to dredge the inland waterways, Nigeria will be able to get a lot of revenue, and that will add to our internally generated revenue. Now, the only area where I feel we have to look at is, like James Manager mentioned, there are a lot of areas that are landlocked, and we have to mention them with a view to making sure that, yes, at the end of the day, we have put in those areas. For example, if you look at Niger is also affected by this. If you look at Kebbi State, for example, in Yauri, this area is also affected by this. So I think if we can now look at the whole areas holistically and then do justice to that, I believe this motion will be quite good. So I support the motion wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Senator Danny.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Joshua Daniel, representing Gombe South. Mr. President, I have mixed feelings about this motion because the motion appears to be targeted at inland ports, but the title of the motion is talking about inland ports, but then the body of the motion, the title is talking about ports generally, whether inland or otherwise. But the body of the motion is essentially talking about inland ports. So you see that the title of the motion is at variance with the body of the motion. If it is inland ports we are talking about, then the motion shouldn't be talking about Enugu and other landlocked states. And even if it is talking about dry ports, Enugu and Aba are not the only places that deserve to have these dry ports. I recall that sometime in the early, I think 2002 or so, the federal government established a number of dry inland ports, one in each geopolitical zone. These inland ports are yet to take off. Funds have not been provided for their takeoff. So I thought that if we are talking about inland ports, dry inland ports, this motion should talk about reviving or re-establishing these inland ports. If it is talking about river ports, then it shouldn't be restricted to the ports along the river Niger. What of the river Benue? We should be talking about Yola, we should be talking about Numan, we should be talking about Makodi and other ports along the Benue River. Not only ports along the river Niger. Even along the river Niger, we should be talking about Baro, we should be talking about Lokoja and other ports along the river Niger. So I think, as suggested by Senator Manager, the motion should be redone. It should be improved upon so that we incorporate all these other ports. If we are talking about...
Okay, put back your microphone. Your microphone. Okay, thank you. State leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. In view, as a result of the consultation I've been making in the chambers, I discovered that this motion is very popular, but it did not cover the diverse interests. And that is to say, to include the inland and the dry port that is needed all over the country, depending on the locations, including Borno and Ekiti. So, and again a body. And in fact, Indigo has been mentioned, and Yobe. So you see, it continues. In view of that, I've consulted with the mover of the motion, and we have agreed to make it all inclusive and be presented next week. In view of that, I move that this motion be stepped down to another next week or another legislative day that will make it holistic and another legislative day. With due respect, I so move.
All right, Madam Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion by the leader that this motion be stepped down for another legislative day. Thank you.
Before I put the question, I hope Senator Stella is happy with this development.
Yes, I concur. Thank you.
Okay, so I also further suggest that you liaise with the Committee on Marine Transport to have a comprehensive overview of the entire structure of both the inland waterway and the dry ports as presently constituted, and see what arrangement can be made to accommodate as many interests as possible. Having put this, having said this, those in support that will stand down this motion to another legislative day, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. The next order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Suleiman Nazif on the need for establishment of toll gates on our federal highways. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Suleiman Nazif to move the motion.
Senator Nazif.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues. My motion this morning is a motion on re-establishment of toll gates on our federal highways. And my name is Senator Suleiman Nazif. I represent Bauchi North. And the Senate notes that the main purpose of toll gates is for revenue generation, which will aid effective and efficient maintenance of federal highways. The Senate observes that the deplorable state of roads in Nigeria has certainly become a national shame and unnecessary embarrassment. Note that the establishment of toll gate is a solution to saving the nation's generally depleted road network. The Senate observed that besides revenue generation, the presence of toll gates, which are normally managed by armed security agents, provide a level of safety for road users. Notes that government alone cannot fund road construction. Disturbed that the poor state of roads in Nigeria has remained for many years a great source of risk for travelers and transporters. worried that the cases of road accidents being reported daily in news media paint terrible and pathetic picture of this ugly development. The Senate is alarmed that the state of country's infrastructure like roads are worrisome, particularly due to corruption and mismanagement of resources over the years. The Senate notes that maintenance of roads can be taken seriously instead of constructing new ones. Observe that the use of toll gates provide Nigeria with an excellent strategy to improve its road and bridge for the benefit of Nigerians. The Senate recalls that toll gates was abolished by the former President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2004, who advocated that the revenue for road maintenance should rather be generated from an increased price of petrol. The Senate accordingly resolves that 1. Constitute an ad hoc committee of the Senate to carefully study the toll gate policy together with other relevant stakeholders on effective and efficient way to carry out policy aimed at producing a holistic package to generate adequate funds for road maintenance, and the money realized should be judiciously utilized in order to restore confidence in the masses. 2. All the Ministry of Work, Transport, and critical stakeholders to come up with a comprehensive policy to back up toll gate system with a view of avoiding the pitfalls of the past. 3. All the Ministry of Works to synergize with Ministry of Information on the need to sensitize the people on the importance of establishing toll gates aimed at correcting negative impressions arising from past mishandling of proceeds of toll gates. Such will encourage road users to willingly pay tolls. Your Excellency, Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues. Mr. President, I am mindful of the situation of roads in Nigeria. I am equally mindful of the situation that we find ourselves today in Nigeria, where times are hard and resources are scarce. Your Excellency, I am further mindful of the fact that without adhering or imbibing maintenance culture, Nigeria will continue to find itself with deplorable state of roads. It is very worrisome, Mr. President, especially when you talk about toll gates. Major three critical issues are, the worries of Nigerians are, 1, who are those, what is the amount that will be fixed for a toll gate? 2, who are those that will be the collectors of those tolls? 3, what will be the money utilized for? These are major reasons and major confusion and major problems of the average Nigerian. But Your Excellency, it is also important for us to realize and to note that it is said that for out of every 100 Nigerians, or about, it is important for us to note that within a population of 100,000 Nigerians, that 162 deaths to a population of 100,000 Nigerians. So that makes it for 162,000 for a million, for a population of a million. So in a nutshell, it will go further to tell you that for a population of 170 million Nigerians, we will be realizing about 27,540,000 death tolls per 170 million Nigerians. Furthermore, it is also important to note that it is reported annually that we have an estimated of 1.3 million deaths annually in Nigeria. Furthermore, with about 50 million who sustain injuries annually in Nigeria. And it is also important to note that Nigeria is ranked among the 192 countries in the world. Nigeria is ranked as 191 with unsafe road network. So, Mr. President, it is important. Toll gates are practiced in all developed societies. Toll gates are practiced to the extent that they have become digital, computerized toll gates. But here in Nigeria, we are talking about even how to survive and how to maintain or how to bring these analog toll gates where toll will be manned by armed people and revenues will be collected. Your Excellency, my highly respected colleagues, the issue of toll gate is of great importance to Nigeria. Those monies that are realized will be used in maintaining those roads, at the same time providing services like hospital.
The Senate will remove their motion so that others can contribute. Senator Bukaraba.
I remain Senator Bukaraba Ibrahim, CON representing Yobe East Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to fully support this motion, heavily moved by my chairman, Senator Nazib. Mr. President, sir, toll gates are a very important source of income for roads. In Nigeria, we have not yet reached the stage when toll gates will maintain all our roads and even do a lot more. But I know of countries in the world where, like France, for example, all French roads are designed, constructed, maintained from toll gates. They have so many toll gates all over the country that they get sufficient money, sufficient funds to design, construct, and maintain roads. This may be a bit early for us in Nigeria, but as we get more and more toll gates, the revenue will continue to increase. We will get a stage when funds from the toll gates will be enough to do all the things I've just talked about: design, construction, maintenance of all our roads. So I fully support this motion, and I urge my colleagues to fully support this so that we make a start. I know it will take time before we reach the stage and the standard reached by France and other countries of the world. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise to support this motion. This motion, as the mover in his lead debate elaborated, is necessary in view of the fact that resources are limited and the need for road maintenance is as we speak, considering the condition to find our roads. And as the mover of the motion said, this Senate needs to support this motion in view of the fact of the realities on ground as to our highways, the condition our highways are. There is the need, Mr. President, for us to diversify, and this is part of it, looking at various sources of revenue that will provide or maintain the infrastructures that are critical, one of which is our roads. We all know, and as he said, he's mindful of the situation our roads are. That is to say, there are no roads in the first place, talk less of paying for. But we have to repair the road. If we repair the roads, there is the need to always maintain and rehabilitate those roads. And that can be adequately done, be taken care of by the resources we collect from the toll gates. Or it will complement the money that can be allocated through appropriation. It's very important. For example, the Kaduna-Abuja road here, simple example. We have a high traffic there. The roads maintenance is very poor. The security of that road is also poor. The emergency services is also non-existent there. If we put a toll gate purposely for that, resources will be generated to adequately take care of those needs. And they can easily be monitored. You can know how much you collect electronically with the digital age today, and then concentration will be made on maintaining that road. It is very important for us to support this motion. Looking at it critically, we may need to do some amendments here and there, but there is the need to study this issue of alternative sources of revenue to maintain our infrastructure. I therefore want to suggest that we refer, as he said, or we direct the committee, relevant committee, to liaise with various agencies or even consultants, or do some studies to come up with a better way of implementing the toll gate system
in order to help generate resources to maintain and rehabilitate our roads. I therefore second and call on our colleagues to support this motion. Minority, better stay where God put you. Senator Lujumi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise to support this motion and to commend the mover of the motion, Senator Nazif, for bringing this motion at this auspicious time. Mr. President, it is a reintroduction of the toll gate system. And like the leader said, there is every need to support the funding of the repairs of roads. I recall, Mr. President, that when I was in charge of roads in Ekiti, we had just newly tarred one of the major roads and we needed to toll it. We were told that it is only FERMA that has the authority to toll roads. Because of that, we were not able to toll that road. And today, the road is an eyesore. It is very bad because maintenance cannot be affected because funding cannot be brought up by state governments regularly for maintaining such roads. And Mr. President, that is the reason why I fully support this motion. Mr. President, before we go into tolling, we need to look at the state of our roads. Earlier, this 8th Senate had reviewed the state of our roads. Nothing has changed, Mr. President, because I came back only yesterday, and the roads are getting from bad to worse. We need to quickly look at that issue, repair the roads, introduce tolling, and of course, weigh bridges. Because without installing weigh bridges, you will have so many of these trailers that are overloaded, ruining the roads that have been recently constructed and tolled. Mr. President, we can learn from the story of Lagos. 2 major roads have been tolled in Lagos. They are the best of roads because they are properly maintained, and the people who are collecting tolls are ensuring that no pothole appears. And that is what we need as a nation. We need to go back to tolling. We need to ensure that FERMA, the agency that will be in charge, is transparent. We need to also reframe this motion so that the committee or all relevant committees can sit together and look at it, because the only way to go to look at our roads and make sure they're safe and secure is to go back to toll gates. Mr. President, once again, I want to thank Senator Nazif and thank you.
Senator Gumel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I associate myself with the Senator Nazif in bringing this very important motion. And a lot have been said. I only need to do some calculation to bring to the notice of the Senate. For the immediate traffic census from Abuja to Kano, we used to have 5 toll gates from Abuja to Kano, sir. And the traffic, the average traffic on this road is 100,000 vehicles. If you take the list amount to be paid 100 naira, the list, 100 naira times, because there are 10 gates, from Abuja to Kaduna there are 2, from Kaduna to Kano there are 3. So 5 going and 5 coming, that's 10. So if you take 100 naira, the list, sir, and times 100,000 vehicles, that means you have 100 million. 100 million times 360.
it will give you 36.5 billion per annum. That's the collectible amount. So if you take off the expenses side, at least you will have the half of that amount. Even if you have to do the road every year, that toll gate revenue will be enough to do the road every year. So, sir, throughout the nation, if we can have the collectible toll gates, there is no need to bring back the construction and the maintenance of our road to the appropriation. We will leave the appropriation for other things. So sir, I think there is no senator who will be against this laudable money-making. I think you should put the question so that we take another.
Senator Sabi. After Sabi, we'll take Basi Albert, the manager, the former commissioner for works. We'll round it up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I want to support, and indeed, let me even add, I want to thwart this motion. The subject is something really that we must all support, because the state of Nigerian roads clearly indicates that we must find alternatives. And I think if this issue of toll gates can be looked at dispassionately with a view to putting in those necessary measures, and indeed I'm even of the opinion that if there is a legislation covering how this should be to prevent a situation where you ask people to come on board, they spend some money, and then maybe we have another policy somersault. I think this is timely, and it will offer us an opportunity to have offtake of some roads from the meager resources available in our annual budget. So I think, Mr. President, is a very straightforward issue. Perhaps maybe when we come to look at the recommendations, we can begin to look at some of these other issues. I support this motion wholeheartedly.
All right. Basi Albert.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues. Mr. President, I remain Senator Albert Basi, Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, in as much as I rise to lend my voice to this motion, I want to draw the attention of this motion that this Senate, in the last 2 weeks, we have passed two bills. The bill on the amendment on the FMA and the Road Trust Fund bill. And the objective of these two bills are to encourage private participation and concessioning of most of our dilapidated federal roads. But I'm beginning to wonder, are we kind of assaulting? Because I know that in the past, the failure of toll gates in the past was as a result of the fact that the federal government does not have the structure to sustain and maintain toll gates. Because most of the funds that were generated through Nigeria on the toll gate that were existing at the time, most of them were diverted. So if we are trying to encourage private participation, all over the world, roads are concessioned from the construction stage. And therefore, it is those that have invested in those roads that toll the roads to collect their toll. And they are very efficient. Whatsoever is left in the hands of government can work. And we should not be seen to be somersaulting and somersaulting. If we have taken a very critical position that this is the time to diversify, then let us allow private sector to drive this process. And I I thank my brother Nazif for bringing this motion, but however, we must also understand as the body, please, if you are going forward, let us go forward. If you are going 10 times backward, let us also go 10 times backward. But I believe that allowing private sector participation in the area of road maintenance is the best way to go at the critical point of this nature. Thank you, Mr. President.
Finally, Johnson.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, James Manager, Delta South, CON. Mr. President, this is an important motion, undoubtedly. And you will all agree with me that poor or rich, high or low, everybody in the society uses these roads. If you are flying from one place to another, by the time you land on the other side of your destination, you will definitely fly on this road. And between two cities that are not too far from one another, you will be on the road from one city to another. Mr. President, our roads have collapsed. Trunk A roads, Trunk B roads, Trunk C roads, all of them have collapsed. And there's no doubt about the fact that the conventional way of funding the road infrastructure is certainly not enough. Certainly not enough. And we have experimented on quite a number of things, one of which is the tolling system. It failed. It failed. So where do we go from here? Just like Albert pointed out, just 2 weeks ago, we have passed two very important bills of the same road infrastructure. But then, can you take toll away from all this? And that's the reason why, Mr. President, I am of the view that we aggregate all this together and let the committee do a thorough job. A thorough job that will come up with something reasonable to assist the Ministry of Works to do something that is better for all of us. Otherwise, where we are in real trouble. We're in a very big mess. So it is important, like for the prayers that are there, for the ministry, the committee on work to x-ray what really happened, what led to the failure of the tolling system in the past. And then aggregate all this together to be able to come up with something that will be reasonable enough. Try to find out how other countries are fared well as far as this road maintenance is concerned. After all, the number of roads we have in this country, they are not up to even 1/10 of the roads that are in America. Not up to 1/10 of the roads that are in America. But yet, the roads in America are very fine, are very good. Let the committee understudy the system in other countries that are working, so that we'll come up with something that will be reasonable enough for the ministry to implement, for us to take the road architecture from the level it is to the next level. So I think what is important is the committee to do a very thorough job. I support this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, distinguished colleagues. I think it's important that we had this discussion. The idea of funding our roads, construction and maintenance has been of utmost concern to every Nigerian, especially now that every day there are needs for increasing this quality of the roads we have in this country. And having passed through this experience in the past, I think it's better that we do a thorough job before we embark on the next exercise. As you are aware, we had toll gates, and it was evident that the Minister of Works didn't have the capacity to maintain or run those toll gates. At some points, they were given out to private sector people. It was largely abused, and there were a lot of fraudulent and sharp practices, and which led to government abolishing it and removing the toll gates. So I think, as James had said, the right thing to do is to put the appropriate policy and then to develop the right model, especially now that we have toll gates all over the world that are not physical, that are driven by electronics. So I think the person to do is to develop the model and the policy. Once that is put in place, many banks, I'm sure, would like to fund the road development, and they can be sure that they can get back the investment. Private sector people can also put in their money, once the policy is right, and then the model is well developed. So that's what I will have, in addition to government appropriation, there will be options that will help us in developing our roads, because the road sector development is key to our national development. So I think this is a motion that we're taking. So I just say we'll go to the prayers now, so that if there are amendments to some of the prayers, we'll articulate it and then resolve to ensure that going forward, that what we'll have will be something that is a world class in terms of the policy on toll-gate development in Nigeria to enhance our road infrastructural development. So having said this, I'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Eminent, yes, Senator Mao.
Distinguished Senator, Senate President, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Mao Abunwa. There is no gainsaying the fact that our roads are in purely dilapidated state and we need concession. And on that note, I want to amend prayer 1 to say, 1, the Senate Committee on Works to carefully study toll gate policy together with the Concessioning Regulation Commission and other stakeholders on effective and efficient ways to carry out the policy aimed at producing a holistic package to generate funds for road maintenance.
Road construction and maintenance.
Road construction and maintenance.
Okay.
Mr. President, sir, distinguished colleagues, I also had quite a similar amendment which has been aptly moved by Senator Ohabunwa. In this respect, Mr. President, I fully second the amendment that has been done, particularly as it directs the Committee on Works to, with the assistance of the Infrastructural Concession Regulatory Commission, to look into the whole gamut of this particular policy so that we can come up with something that meets both the issues that have been raised by Senator Manager and the issue that has been raised also by Senator, exactly, sir. So I so second, Mr. President.
Okay, so I'm now going to put the question. So those in support of the prayer that the Committee on Works should liaise with the relevant agencies to develop the policy and technology to facilitate good tolling in Nigeria. Concession Regulatory Commission and other stakeholders. Those support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the Minister of Works, Transport and other critical stakeholders to come up with a comprehensive policy to back up the toll gate system with a view to avoiding the pitfalls of the past. So, Senator, are you withdrawing this one? Okay, so the second prayer withdrawn. Prayer 3, urge the Minister of Works to synergize with Minister of Information on the need to inspire the people on the importance of re-establishing toll gates aimed at correcting negative impressions arising from past mishandling of proceeds of toll gates, such as encourage road users to willingly pay tolls. I also withdrawing this one too. Okay, so it's also withdrawn. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Said leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The next order of the day is still a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Malam Ali Wakili and Senator Fatima Raji Rasaki on the urgent need to review the implementation status of Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan. Mr. President,
sorry, is that supposed to be the next one? What of the other ones?
Will be stepped down. So if we take the last one, we step down the rest.
Which one do you want to do first? You want to take the last one? You want to withdraw? Don't you think you should step down the the ones before that.
Mr. President, we want to take the last one and step down the rest before we close. And distinguished Senator Mao is a former leader. As you know, he's former.
All right, so the Wakil.
Your Excellency, sir, my colleagues, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Malam Ali Wakili Yemen. I represent Bauchi South. Our motion today is on the urgent need to review the implementation status of Nigeria Automotive Industry Development Plan. The distinguished Senate, I wish to note that the National Automotive Council, NAC, was statutorily established in 1993 as a parastatal of the Federal Ministry of Industry to ensure the survival and growth of the Nigerian automotive industry, using local, human, and material resources to enhance the industry's contribution to the national economy, especially in the areas of transportation of people and goods. Further notes that in 2013, the federal government approved the Nigeria Automotive Industry Development Plan to transform the Nigerian automotive industry and attract investment into the sector. Aware that the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment developed a 5-year program on Nigerian Industrial Revolution to diversify Nigeria's economy and revenue through industry and to increase manufacturing's contribution to the GDP from 4% in 2014 to 6% in 2015, and finally above 10% by 2017. The Senate, further aware that in many countries around the world, the automotive industry plays a strategic and catalytic role in economic development, in employment generation, GDP, development small, medium, and micro enterprises in respect of automotive parts, skill development, and acquisition of technology. Informed that certain companies have benefited from funds generated by the automotive industry, whose particulars and details have not been disclosed to the public for transparency and accountability. Worried, the laudable objectives of the Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan, which include development of industrial infrastructure, skills development, standards, investment promotion, and vehicle purchasing, have not been realized given the crisis of underdevelopment forced by the industry and difficulties faced by over 30 million middle-class Nigerians in purchasing fairly used and fully built-up imported cars due to high tariff fixed at maximum of 70% duty and levy. Disturbed that the increase in tariff, which raised domestic price of imported vehicles and spare parts compounded by high and scarce foreign exchange, leaves much to be desired, especially in recognition of an estimated annual vehicular demand of over 500,000 as at 2012. Senate regrets that while the automotive industry in Nigeria remains in comatose despite the combined existence of the Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan and Nigeria Industrial Revolution Program, the situation is aggravated by casual failure of the CBN, the Nigeria Customs Service, and the National Automotive Council to utilize the accumulated funds generated over the years to transform the automotive industry. Therefore, distinguished senators, the Senate resolved to urge the motion resolved to urge the Senate to direct its committees on industry, trade and investment, custom and excise, and finance to conduct a public hearing to ascertain the current implementation status of the Nigeria Automotive Industry Development Plan and the Nigeria Industrial Revolution Plan. 2, to ascertain status of accumulated NAC levy funds generated over the years, domiciled in the CBN in the implementation of the policy. 3, ascertain the beneficiaries of loans, grants, and circumstances in the disbursement and execution of such funds generated by the National Automotive Council and other relevant revenue-generating agencies. 3, identify existing challenges and key role played by specific government agencies in aggravating the situation. C, recommend appropriate measures, including identification of key legislations for reforms to address the menace faced by the industry. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, I urge you to support this very, very important motion, most especially now that we are talking of recession. Most especially, all of us are being faced by untoward revolution because the middle class is getting extincted each and every day. Some of these things will come as a salvation to the situation we find in Nigeria. I therefore move the motion, and I urge you to support it.
Well, thank you, Senator Gamade.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Barnabas Gamade, Benue, Northeast Senatorial District. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Wakili. And in seconding it, I want to support it on the basis of the following reasoning. It is indeed very clear to everyone in this country that we have come to a stage where economic diversification is ultimate. And until we go back to the rudiments of ensuring that we broaden the base of our economic potential, this country cannot go anywhere. And industrialization, especially manufacturing, is indeed the area by which we can diversify this economy faster than anywhere else. Agreed that our attention is being drawn to the re-engineering of agriculture in the nation. And that is very good because it produces food for the people. And that's a very basic need of a nation. If you don't have food, then you are just struggling to survive as a nation. But the ultimate potential in the development of agriculture is to translate it into manufacturing, where you will have value added to all the agricultural products and turn them into manufactured goods, which today swallows the highest amount of foreign exchange. Nigeria is not able to produce because our industries are comatose. And the motion is centered on the automotive industry, which in fact is the one that affects the greatest number of people. Today, there is really no Nigerian-made car. And even the local content we're talking about, which could have come as a result of industries in plastic, making plastic parts of the motor vehicle and motorcycles, or in the rubber inputs into the manufacture of vehicles. All these industries are at very low level because the Nigerian Automotive Council has been working very hard, but working in a vacuum of the policies in the other sectors of the economy. So while agreeing with this motion wholeheartedly, Mr. President, I still want to suggest that when we come to the prayers, we may not necessarily need to go in the direction that the motion is proposing, because the reasons why we are where we are obvious. We don't really need any public hearing to know why the automotive industry is not working. And to collect the information regarding the collections of monies under the National Automotive Council is a very simple matter, which the Committee on Commerce and Industry can do very easily. And also, in terms of collecting what should be done to improve this sector of the economy is also very simple. So I wish to suggest to the mover of this motion that while agreeing with all the proposals,
the three prayers which should be handled under a public hearing by the committee and several other bodies should be reduced purely to the Committee on Trade and Industry, but should be a direct assignment to them by way of stating that Senate should therefore urge the Committee on Trade and Industry to do the following, which are the three items that have been listed there, so that there will be no need to put in a lot of effort and energy in trying to do a public hearing. Secondly, trying to bring in other bodies like customs and so on and finance to worry about the collection that should go into the National Automotive Council, because these are straightforward matters. The reason why this body has not been effective in the National Industrial Development Plan is that while you make a plan to promote industry, you also make a plan for it to fare by allowing imports to come in as freely as possible, allow dumping from nations that are producing substandard goods, and allowing there to be no control whatsoever in protection of the locally manufactured goods. We have already passed a motion, and indeed today passed a bill that is on the way to force public sector to buy made in Nigeria. That is one step to re-engineer the industrial development plan. So, Mr. President, while supporting this motion, I suggest that we limit the scope of activity to the committee, but we will still achieve the same result at the end of the day. I so submit, sir.
All right, I think this motion has been well dissected by Senator Gamade and brought out the salient issues involved. So I think appropriately we just go to the prayers. And if you want to propose an amendment to the prayers, you can take it as well.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. President. I propose that we amend prayer 1, which is really the only prayer here, that direct the Committee on Industry, Trade and Investment to 1, ascertain the current implementation status of the Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan and the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan. B, ascertain the status of the accumulated National Automotive Council levy funds generated over the years domiciled in Central Bank and the implementation policy. And C, as contained here, ascertain the beneficiaries of loans, grants, and the circumstances surrounding the disbursement and execution of such funds generated by the National Automotive Council and other relevant revenue generating agencies. Full stop. I believe that that should be the prayer 1, incorporating in this way. I so move.
So what of the C, what of 2 and 3?
Three is okay. Three is okay, but the sub 3, that is 1C2.
Okay, let's finish with 1 first. Is there any person seconding the amendment to prayer 1? Senator Mao.
I'm seconding prayer 1 on the ground that customs and excise and finance are included. I hope so.
No, that's the amendment he had made to remove those ones. So you're opposed to the amendment, that's what it is. Okay, Senator Wakil.
Just a little bit of information, sir. Our wisdom in trying to say that the customs and excise and the finance should be involved. The firms of finance is in charge of fiscal policies. The customs are the one collecting some of this money on behalf of the Nigerian Automotive Council. Then there's an issue whereby some companies have been given money from some of these accumulated funds. so that we ensure that our industries are rejuvenated. But you discover that if you go to the warehouses, if you recall, when we are discussing the report on this waiver.
So they are saying that these committees are all relevant and none should be dropped. That's what they are saying. Because nobody has seconded the amendment to that proposed by Senator Gamade, so otherwise we'll put the question as it is. The only thing we could now remove it through a public hearing. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, that is still part of my amendment. So if it is retained, then it means that some aspects of the amendment are actually carried, Mr. President.
Okay, let me put the question as I understand it. Direct Senate committees on industry, trade and investment, custom and exercise, and finance to ascertain the current implementation status of the Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan and the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan. B, ascertain the status of accumulated NAC levy funds generated over the years, domiciled within the CBN in the implementation of the policy. And C, ascertain the beneficiaries of loans and grants and the circumstances surrounding the disbursement and execution of such funds generated by the National Automotive Council and other relevant revenue generating agencies. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Aye. Those that are saying the ayes have it. 2, identify existing challenges and key role played by specific government agencies in aggravating the situation. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against saying the nays, and finally recommend appropriate measures, including identification of key legislations for reform that address the menace faced by the industry. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Aye. Those against saying the ayes have it. Senate leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, the microphone is about to enter in recession. Yeah. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the last time I said it was the last. This is the list. Not the last, but not the least. This is the list. Oh, the list comes before the last.
So you gave us the list.
Now, this is the last now.
No, you said the list. You gave us the last.
He can resurrect. He can resurrect.
No, I still remember. Look at it here.
Distinguished colleagues, I want to just study the mood a bit.
Order. Distinguished colleagues, just one more. We just go. You take the motion, and then we go straight to the prayers. We'll be done in 5 minutes, please.
Thank you for the blout. The last order of the day, distinguished colleagues, is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Issa Misau on the menace of street begging and the need to rehabilitate beggars. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Issa Misau to move the motion.
Senator Issa Misau.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
My name is Senator Issa Misau, representing Bauchi Central. My motion is on menace of street begging and need to rehabilitate street beggars. The Senate notes with concern the exponential increase in the scourge of street begging and the nuisance it constitutes on the street of major cities across the country. The Senate is also aware that though street begging is a global urban problem, the situation in Nigeria appears intractable and overwhelming as beggars are now found everywhere, especially at motor parks, religious centers, road junctions, venues of ceremonies, and other public places. The Senate is also aware that in the past, beggars are persons with physical and mental challenges or grossly indigent. In recent times, there appear to be a new vogue of beggars in town, derisively known as corporate beggars, who take advantage of the sympathy of the society for the less privileged to remain jobless and at times perpetrate crimes in the name of street begging. The Senate observes that while street begging may represent general idea of asking for alms, mendicancy or the religious or cultural perspective of street begging appear to have a strong implication for the phenomenon, especially in the northern part of the country. The Senate regrets that while, for example, the system that produced the almajiris in the north is still very much in existence, its economic support tools have largely been discarded with the knowledge of zakat collection and other forms of tax for its sustenance. The Senate is further aware that unconfirmed reports have it that an average of 65% of beggars from the northern part of the country flock into Lagos to beg every year, with the federal capital battling similar statistics. The Senate acknowledged that street begging not only affects the geographical and social structure of urban areas, it also portrays the country in a bad image to tourists and foreign visitors. The Senate is also concerned that street begging is a worrisome socio-economic challenge, in addition to being a serious menace in liability on the Nigerian populace. And it takes a heavy toll on the lives of teenagers who either act as guide to beggars or even engage in the act themselves, therefore are out of school. The Senate is further concerned that some of the women who engage in street begging also reportedly practice prostitution on the side, thereby leading to unwarranted pregnancies and the bearing of even more child street beggars, while some hoodlums even hide under the guise of beggars to carry out evil criminal deeds. The Senate accordingly resolved as follows: call on the government at all levels to strengthen the social welfare program to make it more meaningful so as to check the tide of physically challenged gravitating to the street begging as the only means of survival. Call on the federal and state government to set up rehabilitation centers and vocational training centers to provide beggars with alternative means of livelihood, thereby making them useful to society. Provide articulate policy to integrate almajiris into the educational system, thereby discouraging them from being used for street begging. Call on the National Orientation Agency and other relevant government information communication agency to embark on aggressive enlightenment campaign to educate the populace on the social consequences of street begging. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this chance to move this motion. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just take few contributions. Senator Bacha, Ablan Adamu, and Goje. Then we'll open the question.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Emmanuel Boacha. I represent Taraba South. Mr. President, I'd like to lend my support to this motion for largely reasons that are obvious, given what we experience in Abuja as the Federal Capital Territory. The presence of beggars in Abuja, or street begging in Abuja, Mr. President, is becoming deeply troubling. I don't want to associate it with the economic recession. It may not. The recession is a global phenomenon, like we have all agreed that it is. But this sudden surge has also security implications. I have read about stories in the social media where beggars exchange hands with people and then suddenly the unexpected happens. And so even from a pious point, which is what I mean by the unexpected happens, I have read a story of a person who was traveling with the wife on the street. The wife suddenly saw a beggar and said, "Take 15 naira." And the beggar's leprosy was transferred to the person who gave the money. This is a real story. And the beggar, he was surrounded by security people who insisted that he must cure the person. And the beggar said, "Okay, if you want me to cure this man, this woman, the woman must kiss me first." So she now decided to kiss him so that she could be cured. And the two of them disappeared. That is it happened. I'm telling you. In Lagos. Now, what I'm saying is, let us even forget about the mystery surrounding these issues. But the security implications, I don't know whether it's a new style of regime or part of the change agenda that beggars flood cities. It's very worrisome. If something is not done, this scenario is embarrassing us before diplomats. In fact, it doesn't send a good image for us in the international community, because when diplomats come around, you go to a traffic light, you are suddenly overwhelmed by their presence. Naturally, we're expected to give to the needy, but not in the circumstances we find ourselves in this country, because giving itself has become a very serious trouble if you give. So if these people could be kept in the secluded place and government could come up with a social security program that will take care of the physically challenged, the better than sending these people to cities and they are all over you. Small boys that ordinarily would have been in school are carrying small plates and following you in your car. When you stop, their sight alone embarrasses us as a nation. And I think something urgent must be done. It's on this ground that I support this motion and pray that it will receive the desired attention before the establishment. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Mr. Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to lend my voice of support to the motion before this hallowed chamber on the menace of street begging and the need to rehabilitate beggars. But in lending my support, Mr. President, I am the view, and that this view is shared by quite a number of our colleagues here, that the issue of beggars is too serious a matter to be treated and handled with the weight of emotion of our distinguished chamber. In place of this motion, because of the importance, the weight, the embarrassment that what the subject matter of this debate is all about, I believe very strongly that a bill passed by this hallowed chamber will better serve the purpose of solving the problem that we are debating. With this motion, even though when I was privileged to serve as a chief executive of one of the states, the Federation, National State to be precise, I tried through the machinations of the State Assembly to pass, a law, the state, that will help us minimize the menace of street begging. But because I am one out of 36 states with the Federal Capital Territory, it was not possible because what I perceived as a law that to contain the situation was not shared by my neighboring states. So the effect, because of the migration element that is pregnant with this institution, if you permit institution quotes, of these beggars, I did not achieve the desired result. I praise the well thought out concern of the mover of this motion. But it is my view, Mr. President, that he withdraws this motion and comes by way of a bill. I will be one of those to support the bill so that we have a solution that is not ad hoc in nature. Because with a motion, there's little or very, very measured weight that a motion can give, to the weight of the problem we are talking about. So I feel very strongly that in appreciation of the significance of the problem in hand, we need to go by way of a bill rather than a motion.
Finally, Mr. Godia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand to support this motion. And I support this motion because it is a well-calculated move to highlight and bring to the fore the issue of street begging in Nigeria, particularly in our big cities. When you move around the world, I'm not sure if there's any country you go, you find swarm of beggars. Those who are supposed to be beggars and those who are not even supposed to be beggars. Begging mostly, unfortunately, in the name of religion. They hide under religion and come out to beg. People that can sustain themselves through many other means. Just because maybe they lose 2 or 3 fingers, somebody just small thing in the leg, will capitalize on that and come to be calling some verses of the Quran or the name of this and then give me money. I think it is high time we will do out of this system. And as the previous speaker said, even though the mover of this motion brought it out, this chamber, this Senate, should do more than a motion. I wholly support his proposal that whether we pass this motion, we can pass this motion as an interim measure, but we can withdraw, this motion can be withdrawn. And a bill that will give specific ways and means of eliminating street begging be introduced. But I want to sound a word of caution. Law alone, just law alone, may not solve the problem. While we can come with any bill, but there's need for our ulamas who always preach in mosques to come out openly and discourage people and condemn it. Because it's not religion. We go to Saudi Arabia, which is the seat of Islam. You don't see people begging on the street. You don't see them. Why should our own be different? I know in our law, cultural, oral cultural, why if it's cultural, it's a bad culture. It's a very, very bad culture. So while introducing a bill, and another bill cannot compel the ulamas, because the ulamas are independent. So this must come pari passu. We can bring a bill. We can also find a way of interfacing with the ulamas, with the traditional rulers, with a way to enlighten people. There's no reason why people that can sustain themselves should come and beg. No reason. But I think there is this misconception by the ordinary people that begging is allowed, begging is encouraged by Islam. Therefore, what they are doing is the right thing. Unless this thing is their mind is changed, the mindset of those begging and the mindset of people who give Because there will be no begging if there are no givers. If the beggars come today, they don't get. Tomorrow they come, they don't get. This tomorrow they come, they will go away.
It's like the prostitution.
So there is need to enlighten the society on the meanings of begging. The beggars and also the givers must be fully enlightened. So I don't want to talk further than this. I support the idea that the movement has two options. We either pass this motion, which will have very minimal effect really in reality, or withdraw this motion and come up with a bill that will be all encompassing, which will also be supported by aggressive popular enlightenment, by critical stakeholders like the ulamas and traditional rulers and other key stakeholders in the society. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Well, distinguished colleagues, I just want to suggest that while I appreciate the concern of the last two contributors that there's need for a bill, I think we can do a quick win by taking the motion, looking at the prayers, while effort is being made to come up with the bill. So if you agree with me, then we'll now go to the prayers. Okay, now additionally, I would just want to say too that the issue of begging rightly has been identified to be a function of some culture that needs to begin to recede. We need to find a way of rolling it back because it doesn't portray us in good light. It's not even good for the development of our young ones. It doesn't create any good future for them. So I think whatever culture it is, we must begin to see that we change the narrative. And of course, there is also the other major issue of internal conflict, which breeds beggars. So that's where government comes in to ensure that those who are displaced are well taken care of so that they don't get to the streets to beg. And then poverty too is also an indicator when issue of beggings are being discussed. So whether it is poverty or internal conflict, government also have a role to play to ensure that the less privileged are well taken care of and protected. Every society has their own poor people. The way they address it remains the parameter to judge the sensitivity of the government of that particular nation. So I think that we need to do more than we're doing now to prepare to provide for the welfare of the less privileged to ensure that we reduce begging to the barest minimum. So having said this, distinguished colleagues, let us quickly go to the prayers. Prayer 1, call on the government at all levels to strengthen the social welfare program, to make it more meaningful so as to check the tide of fiscal challenge gravitating to street begging as the only means of survival. Those in support of this, I say aye. Those against saying nay. The ayes have this prayer. 2, call on the federal government to set up rehabilitation centers and vocational training centers to provide beggars with alternative means of livelihood, thereby making them useful to society. Those in support of this, I say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, provide articulate policy to reintegrate Amajiris into the educational system, thereby discouraging them from being used for street begging. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And finally, call on the National Orientation Agency and other relevant government information communication agency to embark on an aggressive enlightenment campaign to educate the populace on the social consequences of street begging. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? Yes, Senator Obacha.
Mr. President, I want to add an additional prayer which will read as follows. That call on the FCT Minister to ensure a cleanup of Abuja Street of miscreants who call themselves beggars for security reasons.
Any supporter? No supporter. Okay. Leader, you intend to second it? Yes.
Okay. I second the motion.
All right, those are what of the additional prayer as proposed by Buacha. Okay.
In as much as one is in agreement with that in principle, the fact of the matter is we do not have to specifically say Abuja. Every state capital is an urban area in Nigeria. So we just generalize, it's not mention any particular. All right. Seat of government. Seat of government.
So is it Abuja now or okay. Okay. Those in support of the prayer as proposed and seconded say aye. Those against saying the ayes have it. Well, thank you, distinguished colleagues. So, Senator Issa, we have to also take further step, of working with other of your colleagues to propose a bill, to deal finally with this issue of begging in our society, please. All right, thank you. State leader.
I can wear many caps. Okay, many caps. Okay. Yeah. My brother. Order. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, have we exhaustively dealt with the order of today and the mood of the Senate? The good mood. There's a lot. I hereby move that the Senate do adjourn till Wednesday, 26 October 2016 at 10 a.m. As moved.
The acting chief whip and acting leader, you need to step down the remaining items before we adjourn. Just a motion to step down all the remaining items.
Mr. President, distinguished colleague, after exhausting part of the papers in the order of today, I do step down the remaining order in the paper till another legislative day. I so move.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the other item unattended to in the order paper be stepped down till another legislative day. I so second.
Dear colleagues, those in support that the remaining items in the other paper today be stepped down till another legislative day say aye. Those against saying the ayes have it. State leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, have we concluded today's proceeding on the other paper? I hereby move that the Senate do adjourn till Wednesday, 26 October 2016 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do adjourn till 26th of this month, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m. I so second.
Dear colleagues, those in support that this Senate do not adjourn to tomorrow, Wednesday, the 26th day of October 2016 at 10 a.m. prompt say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senate is accordingly adjourned.